following is an NBC special presentation.
We're dealing with an enemy that is resourceful, an enemy that is genius.
You can by no means count him out yet.
Saddam Hussein is well-armed, prepared, stubborn, and ruthless.
I also said that this operation was likely to run for a long period of time.
We U.S. soldiers, we're tough. It's going to be a multi-billion-dollar expense we didn't plan on.
It's actually happening. It isn't fake.
And the price of winning it is going to be blood and anguish.
Never saw a war before.
Please get away from the window.
This round didn't hit me. Does the next one have my name on it?
And we don't know what's going to happen next.
The most fear I think everybody has is the unknown.
I think this may be the tightest restrictions that American reporters have ever had to contend with.
It's what people are not seeing that is very important here.
But I don't think our public out there would ever say that they're willing to risk one life so that they know more.
Reporting tonight on the home front, Faith Daniels. On the war front, Arthur Kent. America, the realities of war.
Good evening from New York. It's D-Day plus 10.
And good evening from a very cold Saudi Arabia. This is the day Pentagon war planners had hoped the air war might be over.
And in fact, we're a long way from over, and that is the reality of this war. Tonight, we're going to take a step back to take a look at where we are and where we aren't.
And we look at the man, Saddam Hussein. He continues to surprise us, upsetting the Allies' war agenda.
And that has changed the fight. Instead of fighting our war, in some ways, we're fighting his war. And we've come to the realization that it's going to be a long fight.
Saddam is fighting back most effectively not on the battlefield, but in our minds. It's psychological warfare. We feel it here, and you feel it there in the States.
And Arthur, what feeds our fears most is not what we see, but what we can't see. And restrictions on the press have kept much of this war out of sight. In a moment, America, the realities of war.
I am not going to be held a captive in the White House by Saddam Hussein of Iraq.
Saddam Hussein is a cunning man, and nowhere does he show that more clearly than on a battlefield when he's under attack.
And that, Arthur, really seems to be this administration's greatest miscalculation.
That's right, Faith. He is ruthless, but more than ruthless. In the past 11 days, he's surprised us. He's shown us a capable military mind, and he still seems to know exactly what he's doing.
When the war began, the objectives were clear. America set the agenda with a well-planned coalition strategy.
I'm hopeful that this fighting will not go on for long, and that casualties will be held to an absolute minimum.
This man, however, has once again shown his genius for confounding his enemies.
In the last 12 hours, 3 Scud missile attacks have occurred. The missiles were launched from southern Iraq towards Saudi Arabia.
Even while the curtain falls on his regime, Saddam Hussein creates surprise and confusion and fear. The president is undaunted.
Because we will prevail.
We're going to humiliate Saddam Hussein. Hope he has a good sense of humor because it's going to be a big joke.
But this is war, unpredictable, inhumane. And Saddam Hussein has shown his cunning. As the days of war passed, so too did the notion of a short campaign.
I urged caution in describing the events in the Persian Gulf, especially in claiming victory too soon.
It is the most lethal air armada ever assembled. After 11 days of bombing, we still don't know exactly what all this has accomplished.
I can't give you any more information. I simply don't know. Yeah.
We do know that Saddam is still able to strike back, not with big guns or his air force, but as only Saddam Hussein would.
I think it's typical of the type of individual that we're dealing with. It's a barbarian.
The massive oil slick released by Iraqi forces in Kuwait is poisoning the Gulf, threatening water desalination plants and planned amphibious assaults.
Move, individual!
The U.S.-led coalition is no longer calling all the shots.
Ship down! Ship down!
Saddam has his own agenda, and the coalition is not just fighting their war, but Saddam's war, too.
There are a number of ways that we can address this problem. I will assure you that we understand those and that the correct procedures to do the military things that are operationally required to stop this will be done.
As the Allied attack continues, military strategists agree Saddam is doomed.
If he had a half a brain, he'd quit before we do him any more damage.
But at what cost? A prohibitively high one if the Iraqi leader has his way. That's why in the face of this offensive, he's doing very little. He hopes to waste attacking forces, wear them down until mounting a counterattack or forcing a stalemate. Most of Saddam's warplanes refuse to fight. We discovered they've likely been held back in hardened bunkers for later battles.
The enemy didn't show up. The opponent didn't show up. We went out there and ran our first play, and it worked great. Scored a touchdown. There was nobody home.
The closest anybody came, there were guys who were over our target all the way up there, but as soon as we got about 50 miles away, they cleared out.
The Allies have confirmed only 50 of more than 500 Iraqi warplanes as destroyed, with some others fleeing to Iran.
Bandit, bandit. Roger, the first target destroyed. The first target destroyed.
The rest of Saddam's Air Force could come back to hurt U.S.-led forces badly. His Scuds were a primary target, but the Allies couldn't find them all. They couldn't even count them. Some declared destroyed turned out to be cardboard decoys.
We have estimates that say that we may have killed as many as 16 of those mobile launchers, but it's very, very difficult to confirm that kind of targeting. So they're still there, and we're still spending a great deal of time to make sure that they can't fire them.
But Scud missiles continue to soar down on Israel and Saudi Arabia. Once again, Saddam's forces are an unknown quantity.
No, I'm just not going to get into the Scud numbers here.
Patriot question here. Do you have any further explanation for the accidental launches of Patriots yesterday?
No, that investigation's continuing. I don't think anybody knows the answer.
Saddam has had other surprises. He's painted damage on undamaged buildings to fool Allied pilots. He's set fire to oil fields, trying to interfere with the air attack. He's spilled oil into the Gulf to distract his enemies and prevent an invasion from the sea. And he's buried landlines to his generals to preserve command and control of his land forces. In Kuwait, Saddam has had nearly 6 months to position his army. It is mammoth and immobile. Though under persistent air assault, it is surviving. Attacking it over land will be costly.
I feel quite sure that a protracted ground war, in the sense that I think you're talking about one that takes months or years, yes, can be avoided. We are achieving success with the air campaign.
We're no longer in a training environment. This is it. You only get one chance to do it right, and we're dealing with real lives here.
I tell you, if I have anything to say about it, we're never going to get into the body count business.
It's very dangerous to underestimate your enemy, but at the same time, it's equally dangerous to make them into something that they're not.
Lieutenant General Walter Boomer commands the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. His Marines are positioned to be among the first Allied ground troops into Kuwait. He spoke at length to NBC News this weekend.
I don't want to make this guy into a giant because I don't think he is. He's a moral pygmy. I mean, anybody that would dump millions of gallons of oil and create an ecological disaster in the Gulf for reasons that I don't understand. I certainly don't see any military reasoning behind that. I wouldn't classify as a giant. This guy isn't like us. We care about every single one of our troops. Care deeply about them. I don't think he gives a hoot about casualties. And we care a great deal about casualties. I've had Marines die in my arms. And I remember that. And I don't want any of these guys hurt. So it places an extra burden on us. But that's okay. That's all right. I won't speculate on how long it will take because I simply don't know. I don't think it will be an extremely long, drawn-out war. I don't believe that for a minute. We still plan for a very tough battle, and certainly there will be casualties. We're working 24 hours a day to ensure that those casualties are going to be low. Saddam can expect no safe quarter. He should anticipate the worst, because the worst is coming. Hadn't seen anything yet.
Maybe so, but many of the surprises so far have come from Saddam. And while we started out fighting our war, we seem more and more to be fighting Saddam's war. Or is it two wars, Faith?
It's really looking more and more like it is two wars, Arthur, and not just a war of military power, but also of staying power. On the home front, it's a psychological war that really gets to the heart of our resolve. And this is also a war where Saddam seems to be setting the agenda. Ever since the Gulf crisis began, Hussein has set in motion a propaganda machine that has occasionally proven to be as formidable a weapon as the Scud. Just a day after the bombs started dropping, Saddam was shown plotting military strategy with his aides, and he successfully continued to convey the image of a confident and dignified man of his people. As much as we qualify the fact that we don't know when these pictures were taken, or whether they actually show what Iraqi TV says they show, it's impossible to refute their impact on Americans. And most compelling of all...
My name is Guy Hunter Jr. I am a warrant officer. I am an American.
The pathetic appearances of captured Allied flyers, coerced to go before Iraqi cameras to identify themselves and denounce the war.
I think our leaders and our people have wrongly attacked the peaceful people of Iraq.
They forced on us uncomfortable images for most Americans because they evoke reminders of an earlier painful episode in America's past, a time when American resolve was weakened, something the administration desperately hoped to avoid.
The agony of Vietnam is still with us. People remember a protracted war. They remember a war where individuals were asked to fight with one hand tied behind their back.
The pictures did exactly what Saddam wanted them to do, link the Persian Gulf with Vietnam, even though in the end he may have underestimated American anger.
If he thought this brutal treatment of pilots is a way to muster world support, he is dead wrong.
Meanwhile, the President of the United States tries to keep up his own image, that it's business as usual. But on occasion, he has had to play catch-up with Hussein. It was only after Americans got a glimpse of Saddam praying on the day after the first airstrikes on Baghdad that the White House released a rare look of our own president in prayer.
I am not going to be held a captive in the White House by Saddam Hussein of Iraq. And you can make a note of that one.
But so far, the president hasn't been able to go any farther than his mountain retreat, and his scheduled summit next month with Mikhail Gorbachev may be on hold. These pictures allegedly show Iraqi civilian casualties. They were delivered to our offices in Amman, Jordan over the weekend, but NBC refused to air them because there was no way of authenticating them. Are these the victims of this war? Were they killed by Allied forces? We simply do not know. What they do show is that Saddam's propaganda machinery continues to function. Saddam Hussein once said the defense of his country was more important than human life, and was reported to have said during his country's 8-year war with Iran, "The way I win the war is just sit until the other side gives up." Hussein's psychological war clearly is designed to wear down the resolve of the American people. And it may very well be that the man who provoked this crisis still believes that the way to win this war is to just sit until the other side gives up. Before the war started, Saddam said Americans don't have the stomach for war. Now he seems to be trying to make sure that we don't. Arthur, do the troops there appear to have the stomach for war?
Yes, Faith, morale here is very high. There's a certain eagerness to join the battle. That's another reality of this war.
There's no doubt in my mind what the final result of this is going to be.
I'm really very fearful that this is not going to be a short-term situation.
There is a sense here on the home front that our men and women in uniform are ready to go, and the worry is that once they go, it may be some time before the guns fall silent again. The realization is sinking in that we may be in for the long haul.
It looks like a long haul.
I could easily see it going on for another 6 months at least.
More people need to come to the realization that this is not, we're not playing.
We know we're at war.
It's called the Fountain of Plenty, Bellefonte. This little community lies in the heart of Pennsylvania, robed in history. Founded by veterans of the Revolutionary War, the town has sent its sons to fight in every armed conflict since. Its cemetery headstones honor a tradition of military service. In Bellefonte today, there's talk of yet another war, one to which the town is already sending scores of young men and women. It's the war in the Gulf.
I was kind of under the opinion to go over there and you'd bomb them, and in a short time that'd be it. But now it looks as though it's going to be different. When you read the papers and look at the news, I'm kind of confused. In other words, with us, going to be a real short one. How bad Iraq is going to be hurt, and what it's going to cost us in our lives as well as material things. So I don't know what to think.
For Terry Poorman and her daughter Brooke, the war with Iraq has an immediate impact. Terry's husband, Kim, shipped out to Saudi Arabia with his reserve unit 5 months ago, and the war's escalation is making her nervous.
I don't want to see any ground war. I don't want to see anything break out. Seriously, I wish things could resolve. It's really getting out of hand.
It scares me and stuff, like when I think about it, like it's just in my mind all the time. The word of bombs, like just like up in the air, they fly, you know, and then they go down and they could hit like things and it could blow people up, like, you know. Well, that's what scares me, honestly. And like the gun shooting and the stuff.
I hope so that our loved ones get back with us.
That hope is echoed by many in Bellefonte. With so many of its residents away in the Gulf, the community has grown closer together, bonding and displaying support for its own. But there's a fear among some that this war is unlike any they've ever seen. Kathy Hoffman is one who's frightened.
Well, I guess my perception of war before was just, you know, you go in and you do it, and it's done with. And sometimes I think maybe the things like Grenada, you know, in Honduras and Panama, those things were over like so quickly. That makes it so unreal that this is not going to be the same situation. It's going to be a long war, and it's going to be a devastating war, and we're going to lose a lot of men and women. And what it's going to do to this country if it is a long war. I think that, I hope it doesn't, but I'm afraid it'll end up, we're going to end up having more protesters, more people against the war. And as people feel the effects of war on their everyday life, I'm afraid that the troops could come home to the same or worse situation than they came home from when they were in Vietnam. And I think that's sad. I think it was a sad situation then, and I think of course it would be even worse now. Maybe when it starts affecting people's everyday lives, I think that's when it'll hit home, that this is really a real thing and this is happening. I think right now it's just something so far removed, and it's like a story that you're watching on TV that you turn on every night to see what the next part of the saga is.
Father in heaven, we do thank you for this time to come together to share. We ask that you be with our soldiers now as they face another day.
Like many in this nation, more and more these families are realizing this is no television soap opera. This war is real.
As far as this group goes, we know we're at war. The body bag count is what's going to really shake this country and get the realization of what's going on over there.
I think that's the scariest part. Who's going to be the first, which family's going to be the first family to have to suffer this? And how are we going to deal with it? I don't know how I am. I don't know.
The night the United States began bombing Iraq, Brooke Foreman stayed up all night, worrying about her father's safety. And she wants her dad to know how she feels.
Scared and that we're always thinking of him in our prayers and stuff, and that he's a brave man to be serving our country and stuff. All the men are brave and stuff over there that's serving our country.
Children shouldn't have such worries. I think it's safe to say, though, that we're all scared. We're all afraid for the men and the women who are serving over there. We know now that it's not going to be a quick and dirty war, that we're in it for some time to come. Arthur?
On the front, Faith, that reality has also swept through the ranks. This is not an exercise, not some video game, as one chaplain put it, or in the words of one Marine, we got past the point where we sit around talking about how tough and leatherneck mean we are. We know the day is coming when we'll have to prove it. Grim certainty and high morale have joined hands.
This is a little unusual to ask each and every one of you to touch hands with somebody, and with God's will, we will survive and we will fight the battle to victory.
All ready?
They try to lift one another's spirits, prepare for combat.
There's no doubt in my mind what the final result of this is going to be. It's just going to be how long it takes Saddam Hussein to figure it out. Well, 1, 2, 3.
From their first days here, they have been battling with uncertainty.
Close.
That's why the gray dawn of war, for many, brought with it a strange relief.
Finally glad it started.
Well, no slack is what will give Iraq.
Knock their socks off.
These guys are ready. They're on the razor's edge, and they're ready to go in there and kill some Iraqis and get home.
But early on in this instant push-button air war, it became clear that new uncertainties cloud the desert skies.
It was pretty hairy today.
Absolutely terrifying. There's nowhere for it. You're frightened of failure. You're frightened of dying. Oh, it's everything.
Not all the eagles return from the hunt. Not all the hunters on the ground are hungry for the fight.
I want to go home.
You don't want to do this?
No. No, I don't.
The air war has hurt the Iraqi military machine, but has not destroyed it.
We saw some air-to-air, and we saw some ground-to-air, and we saw a lot of AAA, and we worked for our money last night.
The Marines, the Army, and their allies mass for a land war of unprecedented complexity and danger.
The Air Force is doing their part of it, which is hitting the enemy's capability, and then hopefully shooting a couple of the obstacles out the way for us. But if that doesn't work, then we've got our own plans.
There is a feeling here that among this young volunteer army, from the very first night of war, youth has been dying fast.
I watched some very young men become middle-aged and somewhat more mature that particular night.
To be a part of it is probably the most overwhelming thing that you could ever imagine.
Now, a rifle is survival. The rockets seek out human targets now. Iraqi soldiers miles away, alone in the night with their own fears, an enemy that must be destroyed.
For our troops, fear is fear of the unknown. Most of them have never seen combat. For the enemy, for the Iraqis, it's a fear of the known. Many of them have seen war, in the war with Iraq and Iran.
Well, Saddam Hussein would certainly like us to think that that makes them battle-hardened and therefore better.
That's right, Faith, but combat has a certain leveling effect. It's a sad truth that guns have a way of making people equal. America, the realities of war will continue.
It scares me and stuff.
Yes, we are. We're definitely already being terrorized.
While the military was congratulating itself on air superiority, Scud missiles fell on Israel and Saudi Arabia.
The equation changed pretty quickly, didn't it?
That's right, Faith. What happened was that Saddam shuffled the deck. Scuds are terror weapons, far more important for their political impact than for the military impact.
You know, it was absolutely amazing here at home, Arthur. Every time a Scud flew, you pointed to the sky, and we ducked. We're thousands of miles away, and yet we ducked.
Looks like it's around the corner. Even though it's so far away, I feel like it's right here. And it's frightening that every time you do turn the TV on, this is all you do see.
You go off and find out what's going on, but put your mask on, if you would, please, right now. We do not want to in any way panic anyone who's looking in on all of this.
Welcome to the first live living room war.
Air raid sirens are going off here. Air raid sirens are going off here.
Saddam Hussein threatened to get us, to strike back with terrorism. But even if he doesn't, he already has us looking over our shoulders.
A lot of people, you know, they're more afraid. They have changed their lives.
For 13-year-old Jesse Strauss, president of his 9th grade class, there's no doubt that the Gulf War has come home to America.
There's physical terrorism and there's mental terrorism. We've already seen a lot of mental terrorism by false bomb scares, etc. The news has been telling us, and public announcements have been telling us to kind of watch out for objects that we don't know, and there are also been bomb scares around. And then there's the physical terrorism, where there actually is a bomb or a plane is hijacked, and I think that there's going to be very little of that, but a lot more of the mental terrorism. We're definitely already being terrorized.
Even mom-and-pop businesses are subject to terrorist threats, like this beauty shop in Forest Hills, Queens.
I had gotten a phone call that someone had planted a bomb in here and hung up, and I called 911.
First thing you do is attach the...
There's a new mood taking hold here, a certain acceptance that terrorism really can happen at home.
And adjust these straps so it's as tight as possible.
Once a novelty, gas masks are now a sellout.
You cannot leave your bag in the airport alone, okay? Otherwise the Port Authority will take it away.
I have 2 little children, and I'd much rather be on the ground and not in the air.
The fear of terrorism is having its insidious effect on American sensibilities in ways unimagined just a few short weeks ago. Americans are shunning airports. Some say ticket sales are down as much as 50% since the war started, while Amtrak agents report train travel is brisk.
I fear a little terrorism. The fear of terrorism.
1, 2, 3, 4, we don't want a bloody war.
As tensions mount on the home front, big business has initiated some big changes.
TWA will cut transatlantic service in half and lay off 2,500.
While some companies like IBM, Xerox, and Kodak are cutting back on air travel, others are screening their travelers. Pan Am has reportedly stopped selling tickets to Iraqi nationals.
I think the safety of American people is at stake. I think that's a good policy.
The collective consciousness is being shaped, even molded by the events in the Gulf.
Anything that may be a breach of security will not be allowed inside the stadium.
Intensified security at today's Super Bowl game is life imitating art. The 1970s movie Black Sunday depicted a terrorist attack on the Super Bowl from a blimp. Not only is the blimp grounded this year, the movie itself, that was scheduled to air last night on several stations around the country, was dropped from the lineup. But it doesn't take a major event to see the country's creeping paranoia. In California, a full-tilt civil defense rehearsal in Sacramento. Monterey manhole covers welded shut to protect phone lines. And Santa Cruz testing its water supply 4 times more than usual.
I think something will happen here.
I would say the UN building. I would not go there. And the Empire State Building, I definitely won't go there.
I'm even afraid for the ball game.
Please get away from the window.
Real or imagined, the mere fear of terrorism has been compared to a psychological twilight zone. Add to that the confusion born of play-by-play war coverage.
It is a very bad situation, getting much worse moment by moment.
I've just heard from an extremely high military source that there was no chemical attack on Tel Aviv, no nerve gas on Tel Aviv. So I can only say, Tom, it's confusing at the moment, very confusing.
For me, I want to know.
Almost like dying, you know, you can't think about it. Presidents say we got to live every day, you know.
When you go and give the State of the Union message in that great hall of the House, and that presents a great opportunity for terrorists if they can get by, why don't you give the State of the Union message quietly from the White House?
I am not going to be held a captive in the White House by Saddam Hussein of Iraq. And you can make a note of that one. We're going about our business, and the world goes on.
It's hard to dismiss the nation's fears when our leadership is forced to deny them. The president may be firm when he says he won't be intimidated, but by just saying even that, he is reacting to Saddam's threat. And that is the nature of terrorism. The victims aren't so much the targets, but the ones who witness it.
On the war front, though, the terror isn't imagined, it is real. And the terror is as much in the anticipation as in the impact.
We knew they might come. Still, Saddam Hussein's Scud missiles took us by surprise.
And another Patriot is going on. Another Patriot is going on at a very low trajectory. This guy is very...
After hearing of war in the distance, a small part of it was coming home. In Saudi Arabia, in Israel, with spectacular random terror. The missiles pack a limited explosive punch, but the psychological impact has been profound.
And when they said multiple Scud alerts, my heart was going.
We have a Scud alert, Mach level.
The sirens send soldiers and weary pilots resting between sorties to their bunkers. It is terrorism. These troops know they're in a war. Attack pilots can strike back at the missile launchers.
If anything else, it kind of pisses me off because the guy woke me up in the middle of the night, so now I want to make somebody pay for that.
Yes! Even for the professionals, Scuds and the possibility of chemical warheads are a troubling distraction.
Gas, gas, gas. You're like, oh, come on, I don't need that now.
Careful, please.
Before the war began, the American oil working community in Saudi Arabia's eastern province had taken the threat of war in stride.
Say cheese, bonjour, bonjour.
We think it's fun.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah, it's fun for us because we get to wear the gas mask.
Yeah, we get a kick out of this. We're going to take all these home and everything.
Yeah.
The reality of war changed that. As dueling Patriot and Scud missiles lit up the sky, showering debris on their city, many residents decided they'd had enough. Military transport flights took dependents to safety.
This was the only way I could get out, so we're considering this a miracle.
Their employer, Aramco, held family breadwinners to their contracts, appealing to them to stay at work or risk losing their jobs and severance benefits.
The company remains in condition orange. We are confident that by continuing to work together and remain calm, we will best assure our general safety and well-being.
Saddam Hussein's terror weapon knocks down buildings, but it strikes deeper at regional political divisions. An Arab capital, Riyadh, under fire from a fellow Arab state. Saudi Arabia, a pillar of stability in the Arab world, is shaken. Israel is targeted in hopes that the Jewish state can be baited, provoked to strike back at Saddam and widen the war. These may be the weapons and the tactics of a desperate man, but Saddam Hussein's flying bombs are hitting his enemies where they live. Anybody, anywhere, anytime.
And that is the ultimate terror weapon, not knowing how or when Saddam is going to come for you.
Arthur, he's using the same weapon here. When we come back, we'll look at a new reality for this war.
I don't want to get into specific target sets yet.
Play Little Caesar's Lucky Sevens game. Everyone wins twice every time.
Hey, I just won 2 pizzas. This must be my lucky day.
And try Lucky Sevens, 2 medium pizzas with 7 toppings for $7.77. And win prizes like a Plymouth Voyager and trips to Universal Studios.
Pizza, pizza.
This is the sound of Unisom, the sound of sleep. With Unisom, you hit your pillow and fall asleep fast. Tonight, you can sleep more soundly with Unisom, America's #1 sleep aid.
When sore muscles or minor arthritis pain hold you back, you need strong medicine. Ben Gay with not just 1, but 2 pain relievers. Warming power for fast relief. Helps get you going again. Ben Gay. Fast, strong medicine for pain relief.
When I think of everything I put in my hair to make it shiny, more manageable, and all it took was a touch of VO5. Yeah, VO5.
VO5 hairdressing. A touch does so much.
Wow, I just tried VO5 for the first time. Yeah, the stuff in the tube your old man used for control. The stuff that's been around forever. Now I know why.
VO5 hairdressing. A touch does so much.
Gee, sounds awful, Bob.
It's no day at the beach, Steve. Sore throat, cough.
Try one of these.
Sugar-free Nice showers your throat with medicine for icy, cool relief.
Oh, cool. Feels better. Guess it's back to work for me.
Yeah. Put your throat on ice with Nice.
You're going to be knocked over by Tartar Control Aquafresh. It reduces ugly tartar and more. It helps remove plaque and fights cavities with fluoride, with taste that knocks over the leading brand. For a great deal more, get Tartar Control Aquafresh.
Where's your daddy?
Saudi Arabia.
Families struggling at the home front.
Where is he when I really need him?
It's real life. It's Jane Pauley. Next.
War escalates in the Persian Gulf, and today has complete coverage from the front lines. As the showdown heats up, watch special reports from the Middle East all this week on Today.
We just don't discuss that capability. I can't tell you why we don't discuss it, because then I'd be discussing it.
The Pentagon has all but transformed the news media here into another branch of the military. The press office says it doesn't want too many reporters cluttering up the battlefield. The result? Americans are seeing the Pentagon's version of the war.
Okay, if you just follow me then. Thanks.
They are the tightest restrictions U.S. journalists have ever been subjected to in time of war.
Enter here.
Like the campaign itself, news coverage of the battlefield comes courtesy of U.S. military planners. Since the bombing started January 16th, reporters cannot request visits to the troops in the field. With a few exceptions, all coverage comes from a dozen small groups of journalists who pool their material with their colleagues massed in the rear. Everything from the ship, airfield, or ground unit the pool will visit, to the length of the assignment, to the relay of pictures and stories to the outside world, is under military control.
All right.
This has caused gaping holes in news coverage. For example, reporters who covered the return of the stealth planes that first bombed Baghdad were frustrated in their efforts to report the story swiftly.
Some of you have been critical.
The Pentagon later apologized. U.S. officers involved had misinterpreted their own rules. And 2 days ago, NBC's Brad Willis, acting as pool reporter with the Marines, was taken to the town of Hafji. There, he covered Marines sweeping the town's deserted streets. But he was not informed of the major oil spill on the beaches nearby. It was only today, 6 days after the Iraqis began dumping oil into the Gulf, that a special pool under military supervision was allowed to photograph these scenes. Most reporters here are striving to get closer to the story. Many have headed off on their own. One four-man team did so last week and hasn't been seen since. The CBS crew, headed by correspondent Bob Simon, is still missing tonight.
Last Sunday, he spoke for many of us about the U.S. military's hammerlock on free reporting.
Do what we tried to do in Vietnam. We'll get in our cars and try to get there. They'll try to stop us. It'll be a battle of wits.
We have no news tonight on Bob and his crew. We can only hope that they're safe. One thing we do know is that until the Pentagon opens up and allows more of us to cover this war properly, more journalists will try to find a back door to the front, and in doing so, may wind up in trouble themselves.
Arthur, the tight restrictions on the press come from a military that is seeing everything through Vietnam-colored glasses. Prior to that, it was a completely different story, a story without censorship. During the Civil War, for the first time, Americans were actually able to hold the graphic images of war in their hands. Matthew Brady followed the Union troops into action with a bulky camera and took the first picture of the U.S. Army in action. Seeing was believing.
This is Richard C. Hautelet speaking from London. The Allied forces landed in France early this morning.
80 years later, Richard Hautelet was one of CBS's young war correspondents in World War II.
In the Battle of the Bulge, I drove where I wanted to drive. At one point, when I arrived at front headquarters, division headquarters, they asked me how I had come. I told them the usual route. And they said, well, it's very interesting because they've been dropping German paratroops all over that road and elsewhere. And I said, well, thanks very much.
Back then, there was a War Department policy on combat reporting. Military commanders wanted as much of it as possible. General Eisenhower ordered all field officers to give the press complete and free access to the war and to the men.
He wanted the people at home, the American people, to get as clear an idea of the war as possible. And I think they got it.
The mad Japanese dog strikes in the Pacific. Emperor Hirohito leads the little yellow bellies who claim the rising sun for their own.
They got it, but with a spin the generals liked. And free access continued through Korea and into Vietnam. Censorship was unthinkable, and journalists played by the rules.
We did not disclose troop movements before an engagement. We did not disclose losses, military plans, until a battle was well underway and the other side knew what was going on.
NBC's Garrick Utley was part of a new generation of war correspondents.
Most of the patrols are reconnaissance.
You want to go on a mission, the helicopter pilot was there, they said, sure, come along. The Marines, or the Army troops, the grunts would love to have you come along. They'd ask you, why are you there when it's so dangerous?
With the beauty of television came the ugliness of war. Images so graphic brought directly into our homes. Vietnam became the living room war.
Vietnam enabled the journalist to cover all sides of the war. The bullseyes, the successes, as well as the ambushes and the failures. And you got a much more total picture of what was going on.
Well, you men did a great job. Thank you, sir. Great job. I know you're proud of yourselves, and you should be.
Today's military leaders came of age in Vietnam. 2 decades later, many of them still blame the press for losing the war. Access has been a political issue ever since.
It followed the Falkland Islands affair, where the British, having their first war after World War II, kept the press out completely. And all the information was sort of spoon-fed, largely in London. That's, I think, was an immediate example that was followed by the United States in Grenada in 1983 and in Panama in 1989.
There's no question the military remembers Vietnam and the reporting, the fact that they did not have a lid on it, they could not control it. And yes, I think that's a major reason why we're seeing the rules that are being used today in terms of the limits on journalists in the Gulf area.
Ironically, for all their control, the top brass in this country relied on the news media to confirm when the bombs had started dropping on Baghdad, and to some extent, where they were hitting. A live war does have its advantages. Arthur, it's curious, with all the restrictions that have been imposed, why have they allowed the live satellites to stay up? Could it be that the military actually wants Saddam to see the Patriots taking out the Scuds?
You might almost think so, but it's important to note that our satellite location is very far in the rear, and we're much easier to handle in this location, of course, and most of the material that goes through this satellite has been subject to military censorship procedure. But it's very interesting. We're joined now by Pentagon spokesman Pete Williams, who's in our Washington newsroom. And Mr. Williams, I thought I might ask you, in view of the circumstances tonight with Bob Simon missing and so many of us trying to get to the front, why are you trying to put your hands so far into our business? We're not trying to tell you how to run the war. We're just trying to cover it. Why do you want to control us so completely?
Well, first of all, Arthur, tell me where the censor is right now. I keep hearing about military censorship, and I keep seeing on networks a super at the bottom of the screen that says cleared by military censor. I'm assuming, I think correctly, that there's no one standing next to you now with their hand on the switch and what you say.
No one's standing next to me now, Mr. Williams, but certainly we had to wait 3 hours the other night to get pictures of a certain aircraft that had a few bullet holes in it. I mean, the censorship procedure is there. It's cumbersome, but what most of us are concerned about, of course, is simple access to the front. You've got a very large front up there, and tonight there are only 5 frontline combat pools organized to cover the ground war should that break out. Why so few? Why are you so concerned with keeping the numbers down?
Sure. Let me come back to that for just a moment, if I may. But I'd like to respond to a couple of things that were in the bill of particulars pieces that came just before. There was censorship in World War II. Before we get too nostalgic for what happened in World War II, there was censorship. There is no censorship in this situation. If someone in the field questions what's in Arthur Kent's report, and he puts it in a piece, and the only recourse I have is to call Tim Russert, the bureau chief of NBC News in Washington, or call someone in New York and ask them whether they'd be willing to take that out. We don't censor. We don't have the ultimate control over what goes on the air. It's you do. It's in the hands of journalists where it ought to be. And the ground rules for covering...
You certainly have control by way of access, sir.
All right, let's talk about access, Arthur, if we may. There are now 800 of Arthur Kent's and his colleagues in Saudi Arabia right now who would like to go out and see the action. In part, I can understand their frustration because right now we have the air war part of it, I think, pretty well covered. The complaint after Panama was that we would not give reporters access to where military action was taking place. We had these pools in place before this operation started. They were on the aircraft carrier that launched the first jets. They were on the battleships that fired the first cruise missiles. They were on the Air Force bases that launched the first planes. So we had the access. If the question is...
Wait a second, Pete. You have a procedure set up called a quick reaction pool to go out to things that happen quickly. How come it took 6 days to get somebody out, to get some reporters out to see this huge oil slick that's floating in the Gulf?
Well, Arthur, with all good intentions, we didn't know about it 6 days ago. There wasn't anything to photograph 6 days ago, except up there in the Persian Gulf.
2 days ago, there certainly was something to photograph, and the Marines prevented our reporter from going to the beaches.
Well, 2 days ago, we tried to organize a pool to go up there. I don't know why it took so long. I can't deny that in any situation there are going to be problems. There are 500,000 nearly military people over there, and I don't think everything's going to go perfectly.
But Mr. Williams, you're just not trying to control the press there. There's also some restrictions being put into place here. The government has canceled the ceremonies at Dover Air Base in the event of casualties, thereby preventing any photographs of coffins. What kind of security concern would that be?
That is a matter, Faith, of trying to be sensitive to the requirements of families, the needs of families, the wishes of families. They ought to be the ones who decide where the ceremonies are. But going back to the other access question about pools, I don't want to get away from this point that there are 800 people out there who would like to go off and cover something in a vast desert in which ground troops are moving around, and even if they went out there on their own, some of the things that Arthur was talking about earlier about reports getting back, military people are still going to have to bring those back. We're not wedded to pools throughout this operation. Right now, until the ground operation gets started, with all those people who want to go out to the front with troops moving around, we have pools out there. Reports are coming back from what troops are doing out in the field, and I don't know any other way to do it right now.
Well, perhaps if one suggestion could come from the field to expand the procedure, get more pools out there.
We're working on that right now.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
The realities of war continues in a moment.
That's right, Faith, and if the sky's clear, although there's rain falling now, a renewed battle and renewed interest in the pilots to get up in the air, and of course, we're grateful that Pete Williams came on to speak to us, but our battle will go on tomorrow as well, trying to cover this war.
You know, Arthur, a French philosopher once said the problem with the future is that it isn't what it used to be. No matter what happens, no matter who wins, the reality of this war, as in all wars, is that the world will never be the same. Night, Arthur.
Good night, Faith.
Good night, everyone.
Another patient is going on.
We have a Scud alert.
We're definitely already being terrorized.
I am not going to be held a captive in the White House by Saddam Hussein of Iraq.
It was pretty hairy today.
Absolutely terrible.
To be a part of it is probably the most overwhelming thing that you could ever imagine.